over here is the Jaguar D-Type. Now the Jaguar D-Type is a very special car because it's the previous model to the Jaguar E-Type. The Jaguar E-Type is the coupe we are all familiar with. The 1950s were very interesting years for the automotive industry because that time in the 1950s, Citroën released the first ever Citroën DS in 1955. And then there were other brands that were tempted to come up with aerodynamic cars, but Citroën was one of the first. And then also Mercedes was climbing up in terms of quality. And the Brits, the British car manufacturers, ooh, they came up with this beaut, the Jaguar D-Type. And it's right here, guys. Ta-da! This is the Jaguar D-Type, everyone. And it's very, very special for the 1950s. Can you believe that, guys? This car was built for the 1950s Le Mans race. And it actually won the race in 1954. However, this model which I'm in right now, the Jaguar D-Type, is from 1955. When it comes to British cars of the 1950s, they were generally ultra luxury oriented. But when it comes to Jaguar of the 1950s, Jaguar was always the sporty one out of the bunch. Like Rolls-Royce and Bentley were full-on luxury, whereas Jaguar was always more into sportiness, the sports cars and everything. And this is no exception, guys. The D-Type was no exception. And it's right here. Now, I'm going to tell you guys something interesting as well. You all by now are aware of the famous Jaguar E-Type, right? Well, this D-Type is basically the previous generation to the E-Type. Difference between the D-Type and the E-Type is that the D-Type was mainly for racing purposes. It was built for competition, whereas the E-Type was more commercial. It was sold commercially, and I don't have to explain in thorough detail why it enjoyed thorough success. I mean, look at it, guys. If you can enjoy this D-Type, you will enjoy the E-Type. You know, it's not a surprise. It's not a surprise. It's just elegant, aerodynamic, and besides, the designer of this Jaguar D-Type worked for an airplane company. They actually designed aircrafts before. So you can imagine why this D-Type looks so aerodynamic. In fact, when I first laid eyes on this, I thought it was an aeroplane without any wings, guys. I mean, look at this. This is so cool. An aeroplane without wings. That's literally what I thought of it. You guys have to admire the interior of this Jaguar D-Type. It looks very cool. I mean, wow, look at this, guys. It's like an airplane cockpit. Over here is the ignition. Over here is your gear stick, guys. This is a manual transmission. However, to see this sort of gear stick on the Jaguar D-Type is no surprise because they always have this sort of transmission. So, you know, in that fashion, it's always like this. And I've noticed this with other Jaguar models up to the 1980s, I think. Like, they always had this sort of gear lever that has this position, whereas in conventional cars, gear levers tend to be very, like, vertical. And this is your handbrake, everyone. Very, very nice. Look at this. Very nostalgic. And over here is the passenger seat, although this was for the engineer when testing the Jaguar E-Type, because you see, as you guys can tell, this is this Jaguar D-Type was actually built for the Le Mans race, as I've said, and so therefore it wasn't built commercially. So you can see a lot of sporty aspect about it if you look at it, how metallic it is. And yes, as I was saying, guys, the steering wheel is very nice. Like, this is actual wood. It's very cool. This part of the interior, this is just so Jaguar, guys. I mean, look at this. This is always how Jaguar used to build their cars. And to this very day, they sort of have an interior that's not far off, like, different than this. I mean, look at this. Look. It's just so Jaguar. Now, there's a reason why the position of the gear stick is like this. In conventional cars, the position of a manual stick would be like this, right? Straight, like vertical. But in the case of this Jaguar D-Type, the gear stick is positioned like this diagonally because your arm needs to relax over here. So therefore, you need to be able to control it with ease. Like this. It's so easy, guys. So easy when it's in this position. You get used to it, and you can even act as an armrest, guys. Look, you can relax your arm here. Although you would not be doing that during the Le Mans race, because during the Le Mans race, both hands would be on the steering wheel. Now, I looked underneath the engine of this Jaguar D-Type, and I have to say, the engine was huge, okay? The engine is huge, and therefore there's so many spaces in the engine. There's a lot of space that's been taken up, and this also equally meant that the interior, part of the interior is intruded by the engine. And if you look at my leg, this car was not built for comfort, it was built for competition. So therefore, there are some components that eats ever so slightly into leg space. This is not a footrest, and I do not recommend you try it, because you can try, but then your knee will go onto the steering wheel. So therefore, it's, yeah, you have to have both legs in this position. Also, another thing to remark about this interior is that nothing is symmetrical. This is my seating position. So you see my legs. The steering wheel is this side, and the the pedals for the drivers, the accelerator is there, the brake is there, and the clutch is there. All the pedals are more this side. So it's a bit interesting how the interior of this Jaguar D-Type is done. It feels like it has been done with a bit of an afterthought, but let's not forget this was the 1950s. So this is a sports racing car of the 1950s. I'm going to show you all in a moment how to open the bonnet of this Jaguar D-Type. Now, first you have to do this, okay? This is also present on the other side of the Jaguar D-Type. Here it goes. So first you have to remove the belt. Ta-da! And then you turn this 90 degrees, anti-clockwise. Like this. Now, do not get too excited to open the bonnet too quickly. Let's do this same thing at the other side too. And then you gently pull the bonnet up. Now I'm going to tell you all a funny thing about Jaguar when it comes to the D-Type and engine sizes. So, first there was a 3.5 liter engine, but then over the course of time Jaguar released a 3.8 liter engine. But then later they decided they have to reduce the power or the liter of engine down to 3 liter engine. So first was a 3.5, then was a 3.8, and then was just a simple 3 liter engine. Now, why did Jaguar make this decision is something I'm not fully aware of. But what I am fully aware of is that this was in the 1950s, and so seeing this engine feels a bit like space age. But if you think about it, this is all mechanical, not a single bit of electronics, guys. The only thing that's electric is the battery for logic reasons, which I don't even need to elaborate on. And obviously the basic components like the lighting and such. But if you look carefully at this whole thing, the way it's designed, it's just very, very interesting. It's just interesting. And look, if you look carefully at this part, this is where your feet goes when you're in the interior of the Jaguar D-Type. So your foot space is all the way until here. And then for the rest, it's the engine that eats up all the space. Now, for this particular Jaguar D-Type, I see it right there. This is a 3.8 liter engine. Now, first thing that pops in my mind, powerful. Now guys, another thing I find super remarkable is that this is just a 3.8 liter engine. But when we think of sports cars, especially let alone the 1950s or even the 60s, the first thing that pops in my mind, or our mind in general, are V8 engines that are so colossal. Jaguar just managed this with a 3.8 liter engine. How amazing is that? This is so cool, guys. Now, if you guys look very carefully, this is the steering system. If you look at this little black tube right here, this is directly connected with the steering wheel. See this? Like I said, guys, it's so mechanical. And believe it or not, those wheels have disc brakes. See, one of the earliest examples of cars employing disc brakes. When closing the engine bonnet, when locking it, it's important you lock it very nicely and with a lot of respect. Like this. So always turn this 90 degrees, like this. Okay? This is now 90 degrees down, which means it's closed. But then your belt has to be like this. Right? With the belt. Now, you have this edge of the belt. You have to tuck it in this holder right here. Don't just leave it like that. That is very irresponsible, you know what I mean? You have to treat this wonderful Jaguar D-Type with a lot of love. So there. Guys, look at how neat and tidy it looks. Don't you just love this sort of design? Looks exactly like what you'd see on an aircraft. I'm going to show you all the seats that just lies right beside the driver's seat. Now, this, I was thinking initially this is the passenger seat. However, I learned that this is not the passenger seat at all. This seat was intended for the engineers. So when the engineers tested the Jaguar D-Type, they had to have someone sit here to monitor some things. So this is how you open it. Very gently, with a lot of respect. So this is the passenger seat, everyone. The side seat, and I'm going to show you all right now. This is the passenger seat of the Jaguar D-Type, everyone. This is how it looks. Let's look at this, guys. This is actual metal inside. How nice. Now, again, as I've stated, guys, this was meant for the engineer, so it wasn't really meant for comfort at all, but it was meant for monitoring. And over here is your handbrake, as I've stated, everyone. And this is your gear lever. As I've stated, this was so typical amongst Jaguar. I remember seeing this gear lever a lot in 1970s models, 1980s as well, and probably the 90s. I think in the 90s they also had it still. One remarkable thing I'd like to point out is the seat stitching. The stitching right here, and right there, and right there. It really does remind me of Jaguar models of today. And in British luxury cars in general, they really do have a thing for leather piping stitches. Yeah, that's what it's called. Piping, pipe leather stitch. Very nice. So here's my conclusion about the Jaguar D-Type. I have to say that this Jaguar D-Type was pretty much the birth of a real Jaguar. Like, this is just the beginning of it all, if you think about it, in the 1950s. Because after this, the next generation was the Jaguar E-Type. And the Jaguar E-Type, as you all know, is a famous model that earned so much fame because it was like a sports car at that time, but it had the luxury to it, and it just had the power, the aesthetics. It was just not an A to B machine, you know, it was something that had its own magic when you drive. It's like the Citroen DS. Now, you see, this is very good because each and every brand was finding their own niche. They're finding their own speciality, something they are going to be known for the coming decades. And this Jaguar just gave a very British sporting vibe for the rest of the Jaguars to come. Because I look inside the interior really does remind me of Jaguars of today. At least the piping, the leather, the piping of the leather, the stitching. It just really is Jaguar. You want my opinion of this Jaguar D-Type? Jaguar D-Type. I really do. You know, I think this car was very special and it's so inspiring, guys, if you think about it. It's got its own unique identity. This goes down to telling you so much about the 1950s and how racing was evolving. It was climbing up, guys. They didn't stick to old school, sharp edges. No. They really did their science homework and decided that having an aerodynamic body is the solution. However, in the case of Jaguar, it really does look like a wingless airplane. Like, Jaguar went full blast about this. Like, wow, this is so cool. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And stay tuned for more videos that are on the run.